Hi everybody, this is Dr. Bob Quillish. I'm the president of Visionary Valuations. For the next few minutes, I just want to talk to you about how to prepare your optometry practice for sale. Some of the things to keep in mind and some steps you can take to make the process a little bit easier when that time comes. First of all, and this is fairly obvious, is to try your best to plan your transition. The fact of the matter is at some point you're going to leave your practice. It's best to try to do that on your own terms, and it requires some planning to do that. Keep in mind, if you don't already have a buyer in mind, if you don't already have an associate in your practice or someone that you're already talking to purchase the practice, it's going to take you at least 6 to 12 months to sell the practice. That sounds like a lot of time, but the time it takes to market the practice, and then once a buyer is found, even that amount of time that it takes to transition that buyer from their current situation into actually being an owner of your practice often takes several months. Things always take longer in these type of scenarios than maybe we would like them to, or even what we think that they would. Also, start working with a financial advisor. Make sure you have as much money as you think you do. And make sure that you have the money that you need to live on. Worst thing you could do would be to sell your practice and a year or two from now later say, gosh, I wish I would have just kept working a little bit longer. Start planning now and make sure you have realistic goals and realistic expectations about what your retirement plan is going to be like, and also how much you're going to sell your practice for. You want to get the practice appraised. That helps you set a realistic goal for the asking price, so that you're not setting too high of an expectation. You want to be reasonable with it so you're not surprised when it comes to time to actually sell. When you get it appraised, well, I think if you're within a couple of years of wanting to start listing the practice for sale, it's a reasonable time to get it appraised. That appraisal can serve a few purposes for you. When it comes time to sell the practice, well, it's going to lend credibility to your asking price. That's obvious. But if you're getting it appraised a couple years ahead of time, it also can maybe help highlight some of the areas of your practice that need to be improved. And then over a couple of years, you can try to improve those areas and hopefully improve the value of the practice in the process. An appraisal is absolutely needed when it comes time to sell. Any buyer is not just going to take your word for it. We need to be able to demonstrate with appraisal techniques and independent validity that what we're asking for the practice is reasonable and proper. And also, when you're using an appraiser, use someone that is accustomed to appraising professional practices, especially optometry practices. Don't use just an accountant. Accountants are very good at what they do, but most of them are really not skilled appraisers, and they're certainly not skilled professional practice appraisers. So keep that in mind. Start really working on improving your curb appeal. I've seen a lot of practices where the practices were just run down. And you don't have to have brand new equipment. A lot of times you just haven't maybe updated some of that stuff in a few years as you're getting a little bit older. And that's fine. But if you need new carpet, spend them few bucks to get the extra carpet. Paint. Maybe put new wallpaper up. Start getting rid of clutter. Just like you're trying to sell a house, you want it to make it look good to your buyer. In reality, a lot of people just, potential buyers, whether it be for a practice or any business or your house, they have a hard time seeing the potential. If they see something that is kind of run down, over cluttered, and just it's overwhelming to them. You want it to be as neat and clean and sharp as possible. You want to keep good records. This is becoming less of an issue, and almost everybody now has computerized records to some degree. Even if you're not using medical records, computerized medical records, you're at least using a computer to manage your office finances and things of that nature. Think about cleaning up accounts receivable. If you got some really old receivables on your books that you just know you're not going to collect, Work with your accountant, write them off. It doesn't really affect the price of the practice or the value of the practice in the long run, but it kind of eliminates some kind of a red flag, or eliminates a question that buyers often have. You want to make sure your corporate taxes are up to date. You're going to need the last 3 years of your corporate taxes to have an appraisal done. You're certainly going to need that when it comes time to sell. So if you're behind on your taxes, get up to date with them as quick as you can. Take a look at your lease. If you're leasing your space where your office is, make sure that it's transferable to another buyer. Sometimes leases will just kind of have a boilerplate language in them that can be problematic. Usually it's not going to be a big deal working with your landlord to get that straightened out, but check it out ahead of time. You don't want that to come up kind of at the last minute. That could delay a possible sale of the business. Make sure your lease terms are favorable to a new buyer, and that lease is going to extend out once that new buyer takes place. The new buyer has to have confidence that they can actually practice out of that facility that they're in. If you own the building, most times the new buyer is not going to want to buy the building and the practice at the same time. Not to say it can't happen, but especially if it's a young buyer, the resources are going to be somewhat limited. Plan to sell the building and the practice separate, and most likely end up selling the building maybe a few years in the future. Try the best that you can to maintain a stable and growing practice if at all possible. It's going to be tough in the last few years before retirement. You're wanting to cut back and maybe spend a little more time with the kids, with your wife, on vacation. Try the best that you can to at least keep the revenue stable. Because as the practice tails off, if it's showing less and less production, that's going to significantly drive down the value of the practice and drive down what we can ask for it, what we can sell for it. Of course, the best scenario is to continue growing. And lastly, are you yourself prepared? Are you mentally prepared? Don't take that for granted. Think about it. What you may like to do for 10 days on a vacation isn't necessarily what you want to do for every day for the rest of your life. Make sure you have hobbies and goals and a plan set forth to work toward. It's important that you're mentally prepared so you can enjoy the transition and enjoy this next stage of your life. And also be mentally prepared to have your practice somewhat scrutinized. And maybe that's scrutinized by the appraiser. Maybe that's scrutinized by buyers. You've worked in something for years and you take it very dear to your heart. And it can be very disconcerting to have people maybe challenge the way you've done things in the past, or tell you that they think the practice is worth less than what you think that it is. Just understand it is what it is, and a good practice broker will help you work through that as well. Keep in mind you'll likely be asked to continue on in the practice for a few months after it's sold. This helps maintain the practice continuity, helps maintain the value, helps maintain the functionality of the practice. And usually the lenders, if they're loaning most of the practice value to the new buyer, a lot of times they'll even require that. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have to be in there seeing patients 5 days a week. But you may see patients a day or two a week for a few months and then be available as a consultant to the buyer for a few months just to help transfer it over. And that also helps you somewhat ease out of the practice and helps you become more comfortable with the situation as well. Well, hopefully you found that helpful. And if you are at the point where you'd like to have your practice appraised or you're thinking about selling your practice, please give us a call or send me an email. The information is there on the screen. I'd be happy to help you out. I welcome a phone call at any time with no obligation, just a chat to see if we can help you out. Best of luck, and thank you for your time.